I'll start by telling a story. When I was 10 years old, I was born in Akron, Ohio. Anyone from Ohio here? Any Buckeyes? There you go, see? LeBron. I was actually born in the same hospital as LeBron James and Steph Curry. Obviously, they probably had a different nurse than I did, although I think someday I could be the commissioner of the NBA. I am suited for that. But when I was 10, my mom moved us out to Southern California from Ohio. I was a single mom, 6 kids in my family, 5 boys and 1 girl. I was blessed. I have this wonderful mom. My siblings were, excuse my language, but parents' wet dreams. They loved to study, all went to the Ivy Leagues. My mom was very, very inspirational. Although she looked like your typical Jewish mom, you wouldn't believe it, but she was a black belt of the martial arts. It really was surprising to most people when they met her because she looked like your typical Jewish mother, but she was a 3rd-degree black belt in the martial art of Jewish guilt. And so my siblings were extremely successful. But we moved out to California at 10. I wasn't quite as academically inclined. I liked football. In fact, my favorite team was the Ohio State Buckeyes, growing up in Ohio. And my second favorite team was whoever was playing Michigan. Well, when I moved out in 1978, Michigan was playing in the Rose Bowl. And my mom decided that she was going to take all 6 of her children up to the Rose Bowl parade, which may be one of the most disappointing things that ever happened to me. Because I was just right there at the Rose Bowl, sitting on Colorado Boulevard. My mom woke us up at 4 in the morning to go lie on the streets of Colorado Boulevard to watch a parade of flowers. And being 10 years old, I wasn't that excited. I was more excited what was going on in the stadium, which was this young quarterback that played for the University of Washington because he was a black quarterback. And he was playing against Michigan, which made Washington my second favorite team that day. Well, I couldn't afford to go to the game, as you could imagine. So we took our old Country Squire station wagon, most of you hopefully know what that is, and we were driving back from the parade, listening on our AM radio to the Rose Bowl. And Warren Moon, who ended up being my business partner, he was a 16.5-point underdog against the nationally ranked Michigan Wolverines, and he upset them. In fact, not only did he upset them, but he was the MVP of the Rose Bowl and one of the greatest performances ever in the Rose Bowl. And that was a significant moment for me because I thought of myself as an innovator. And an innovator to me, and the definition of an innovator, is someone that it's the process or the action of making your imagination real. And although Warren was not an entrepreneur, but an innovator, that he went against all odds to not only be the MVP of the Rose Bowl, but after 6 years in Canada, to be the highest paid player in the NFL, and of course the first Hall of Fame African-American quarterback. Warren Moon is an innovator. I wanted to be an innovator as well, so I decided after that game, driving home, that unlike my siblings who wanted to be doctors and lawyers and rabbis and other things like that and go to Harvard, Penn, Columbia, I'm still not jealous. You sound like I have a chip on my shoulder still. In fact, I spoke at Stanford. I love telling this. When I started this, I said, just before I start, I have to tell you, this is my favorite school. And you guys rejected me for undergrad, and you rejected me for law school. Not here. I'm an innovator. Well, I decided at that time to be an innovator. I wanted to be like Warren Moon, so I was going to be the great Jewish quarterback. And I know that's probably not as surprising because we have the chosen Rosen at UCLA, but he's not in the Hall of Fame yet. But I really wanted to be a football player, and I worked really, really hard at it. It's not like I had this humongous father that played in the NFL. In fact, I'm taller than my father. And in fact, unfortunately for my siblings, I may be the low end of the gene pool academically, but athletically, I'm the top of the gene pool in my family. And that's pretty pathetic. Although it's nice at family reunions when they think of me as tall and handsome. Well, I wanted to be this football player, so I worked really hard as an innovator, making my imagination real. And in fact, I came up with this philosophy that if I thought about what I want hard enough, that it would be a possibility in my life. To be a great Jewish quarterback was a possibility. And if I thought about it in the right way and became inspired, like many of the great athletes and entrepreneurs that I know, if I was inspired, my possibilities would become a probability. I actually could make a mathematical difference in my life simply by being inspired. I wrote a book about it, called it Connected to Goodness. I don't care what inspires you. To me, it's anything good. It could be God, Jesus, Muhammad, Joseph Smith, the 12th man if you're a Seahawks fan. It doesn't matter, but if you live your life inspired, you can make every possibility a probability. But the difference was, how do I make that probability reality? And so I went on a quest to figure out how I was going to make this into a Hall of Fame quarterback. Well, I worked really hard, and I actually went to college and played football. I got a scholarship to play football, and I really found that I had one skill in football that was really great, and that was I could run scared faster than anyone could angry. And it worked for me on a football field because I had these 4 brothers and I had a really big mouth. So I had a really small apartment that we lived in. My mom was a teacher. We didn't have much money. So I would dodge and ditch all day long, talking trash to my siblings. And it made me into quite a good returner and kick returner. I also played defensive back. So instead of a quarterback, I was now a cornerback. I did play in college. In fact, my first game in college, I played against a guy named Christian Okoye. Anybody remember the Nigerian Nightmare, AFC Player of the Year, 260 pounds, faster than I was? Well, I'm blessed because I am the first person ever to get Christian Okoye's autograph. I got his autograph for a school called Azusa Pacific. He signed my jersey with his size 13 foot right here. It's still signed. He's a close friend of mine now, and he still laughs at me. You played football? I'm like, yeah, I swear. You ran me over. Don't you remember me? Because I ran everyone over, Dave. I'm like, oh, okay. You should have played in a bigger school. Well, anyway, I learned at that time that I probably couldn't be an NFL star. When Christian Okoye ran me over, I realized I didn't have the skill to be an innovator in football. I just didn't have the skill. So, like every other nice Jewish boy, I decided that if I couldn't be an NFL star, that I'd be a doctor. Right? That's logical. I look more like a doctor. My oldest brother was doing his residency at UCLA, and I went over to visit him after my football season, and I went to my brother. He was in the hospital, and I looked around and I said to him, gosh, I hate hospitals. Dave, you're pre-med at a great college and you hate hospitals? I go, yeah, well, I don't want to be a hospital doctor. I want to be an allergist. I want to work with kids. I want to have a nice small office in the neighborhood, hopefully some cute nurses and a beautiful wife, and just help kids. I don't even want to see blood, right? Sneezing's about as far as I can get. I hate hospitals. That's when I learned a really important lesson about knowledge. That not only did you need to have skills to be an innovator, but you needed knowledge. In fact, my brother gave me a great piece of advice. He said to me, David, you need to be more interested than interesting. And later on in my life, I was blessed to be the CEO of the most notable sports agency in the world. They made this famous movie, Jerry Maguire, about Leigh. And people would come up to me all the time, less interested and more interesting, and say, Mr. Maguire, I want to be just like you, Mr. Maguire. And I'm thinking to myself, that's exactly how my brother must have felt when I was 18 and told him I wanted to be a doctor and hated hospitals. These poor kids don't even know what a sports agent does. They haven't done enough research or due diligence to have the knowledge to be an innovator in medicine or in sports agentry or in technology. It doesn't matter. Well, like every other nice Jewish boy that couldn't be a doctor, I became something that nobody believed I could be, which was a Jewish lawyer. So I definitely don't look like that. And so I went to law school to be rich. My main goal was to be rich. That's why I went to law school. And the reason I wanted to be rich was really simple. I lived a very happy childhood. We had 6 kids, this unbelievable mom, the expert of Jewish guilt, but we were really happy. I mean, we were so poor that a good day for me was going to McDonald's and sharing a couple large French fries in a bowl. That was fine with me. It was a good day. It was a happy day. But the only time I wasn't happy was when I caught my mom crying because she couldn't provide for me and my siblings. The car broke down. I couldn't go to summer camp. A variety of different things in my life. And so I decided that if I could be rich, I could make my mom happy. And that, of course, would make me happy. So I went to law school to be rich. I went to Tulane University to be an oil and gas litigator. So I became more interested than interesting and realized that oil and gas litigators were very rich. They may not be good for the environment, but they're very rich. And so I studied really hard. And when I graduated law school, I had 2 job offers. One was to be an oil and gas litigator and make a lot of money. And the other, I was offered a job in technology. I was offered a job by a legal publisher to sell legal research online, to sell the internet. And this is the early 90s. The internet was on 286 XT computers with 56K modems. That may mean something to some of you. You actually had a phone line connected to them. So, of course, I asked my trusted advisor, my Kumamoto mama, and asked her, Mom, what should I do? Should I be a litigator, a lawyer, or should I work in the internet? And I swear to God, my mom looked at me without blinking and said, Dave, you need to be a real lawyer. Because this internet thing's a fad. Valuable lesson number 2. Just because someone loves you does not mean they give you good advice. And a lot of times as entrepreneurs and innovators, we go to our most trusted advisors, people that care the most about us, and absolutely have no knowledge or skills pertaining to what we're trying to do. And we ask them for advice, and then, unfortunately, we blame them and resent them for giving us bad advice. I asked a 2nd grade teacher about the internet, about selling legal research online. That was the answer that I got. Well, I was blessed enough to make the right decision, and I sold legal research online for a company called West Publishing. About 4 years into my career, and just as the internet boom happened, Thomson Reuters bought us for $3.4 billion. I was rich, and it was nice. I was in my 20s, and I went on to parlay my career in technology all the way through. At West, I learned about the difference, by the way, of an entrepreneur and an innovator. And it's a very important difference. And I see this problem with millennials today, because millennials today are great innovators, right? They have a million great ideas, a million of them. And they actually don't have the authority to understand the difference between the process of making your imagination real and being an entrepreneur, which is monetizing your idea. Big, big difference. I learned that difference at West, that instead of just being an innovator, that I needed to learn how to make money from that idea. Big, big difference. And so I went to West, and they sold legal research online, and I learned about monetizing content. In fact, to this day, I would tell you Westlaw has one of the best methods of monetizing content. Right? Originally, we put it up, took all these books, they were in huge NCR servers in a big hill in Minnesota, and people accessed it for $4.86 a minute. Any of you lawyers out there may have used Westlaw, but why was it so good? Because there are several ways to monetize it. One, they went to lawyers and said, you can bill this, right? You can just straight bill this to your clients, so this is free. Right? You put it on your bill. They also had a value justification. Said, well, how long does it take you right now to copy and paste all those slip and fall cases, right? We used to read books, put them on a copier, highlight them, cut them out, and does anybody remember like WordPerfect or anything? Yeah, I'm old enough. In fact, one of my favorite stories is I was blessed to sell Westlaw to the Supreme Court of the United States. And Justice Scalia, when I presented it, the first thing he said to me, he said, David, nobody will ever do research on the internet. You need books. Later on, I got to meet with Justice Scalia, and I told him that story, and he said to me, he goes, Dave, you don't tell anyone that story, do you? Every speech I get. Sorry, buddy. But I learned to monetize content. Now, the difficult thing about content is that it's just ideas. And there's a million great ideas out there, right? Everyone has a great idea. How do you monetize it? But the cool thing about content is if you find the right content and the right idea, it lasts forever. It does. It lasts forever. In fact, I went onto YouTube. I have a 7-year-old son. So I just kind of Googled and found the Mickey Mouse Club. And I saw 470 million hits on the Mickey Mouse Club on YouTube. In 1940, it was a black and white whistling mute mouse, right, from a great entrepreneur, Walt Disney, who learned how to monetize that mouse throughout our generations to become the icon of entertainment. So to monetize content became an important part of being an entrepreneur versus an innovator. Now, my second job was with a company called EveryPath. It monetized the access to content. It transcoded the internet from wireless proxy servers down onto WAP phones, old flip phones, which some of you probably still have. But those phones, we learned to monetize the access. And then I moved on to Samsung, where they hired me to be the CEO of the first convergence device. We call them smartphones today. And I learned about monetizing mediums or venues. So those three things were the difference between being an innovator and an entrepreneur. To be an innovator, you need skills, knowledge, and desire. And to monetize it, become an entrepreneur, you need to know how to monetize the access, the medium, and the venues. Now, does anyone here know a guy named Maurice McDonald? Nobody. How about Richard McDonald? No. Yeah, Richard, good. Anyone know a guy named Ray Kroc? Yeah. So Maurice and Richard McDonald, they're one of the world's greatest innovators. In my opinion, they created what was called the Speedy Service System in San Bernardino, California. That converted from a barbecue drive-in into this 8-item menu company called McDonald's. And they had this in 1955. You can check my dates, maybe off of the year 54. And Maurice and Mac McDonald had this great system called the Speedy Service System, and they taught that system. They tried to franchise their restaurants, and they had terrible quality control, and they had to revert back to just this one great successful burger stand. Until they met a guy named Ray Kroc, who wasn't an innovator at all. He was truly an entrepreneur. Ray Kroc took their idea, franchised it. In fact, he had 700 stores within the first 4 years, 30 million hamburgers being sold, something ridiculous. But the funny thing was, he still wasn't making money. He didn't make money until he met a guy when he was almost going bankrupt at the bank who said, "You're doing this all wrong. A 0.5% of royalty is not going to get you out of trouble. You're going to spend more money than you make. This is a great concept. You need to own the real estate. You need to own the real estate, lease back the properties." And Ray Kroc, as you know, became the biggest real estate holder in America and one of the biggest in the world. He also is one of the greatest entrepreneurs. He's such a great entrepreneur. He used mentorship in all types of different areas that he actually bought the rights not only to the McDonald's name, but the rights to call him founder. That's why when I ask people today, all these years later, if you've ever heard of Maurice and Richard McDonald, nobody knows them, but everybody knows Ray Kroc. The one thing that I loved about Ray Kroc too is he believed in three things: making a lot of money, helping a lot of people, and having a lot of fun. He's 52 years old when he met Maurice and Richard McDonald's. 52 years old, he met them and using all his situational knowledge, all the skills he had learned from being a cup salesman and a multi-mixer salesman. He had gained all the knowledge necessary, skills necessary, and desire to make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. In 1984, when he died and owned the San Diego Padres, Joan Kroc, his wife, ended up giving away their entire fortune to charity. That to me is an entrepreneur. He took an innovation that wasn't even his, took it to the point where he's known as the founder of that innovation, scaled it to extraordinary levels of billions of dollars, and then gave it all back to everyone else to share. That's true innovation. That's true entrepreneurship. And he could have done it without the help of others. So I believe that you always need to have mentors. In fact, in my life, I wasn't quite as successful as most people. I was a multimillionaire in my 30s, surrounded myself with the wrong mentors, the wrong people, and the wrong ideas, and I lost everything. I lost everything because I surrounded myself with the wrong people and the wrong ideas, and I made bad choices. Everything to that point in my 30s had been a huge success. And I believed that anything I touched was going to turn to gold. I bought a golf course without knowing anything about golf courses. I got lucky when I bought it, which was typical for my life, right? I buy the golf course. We build the golf course. I get Sam Snead to design the golf course. He passes away right after he designs it. So I now have Sam Snead's only designed golf course in America. 2006 comes. The golf course goes from $12 million to $120 million in value. And without calling anyone or asking anyone, which I'm sure several of you in this room being in real estate would know, all I had to do was pick up the phone. I decided to leverage the shit out of it and buy a whole bunch more real estate. And I lost everything, which was truly the best thing that ever happened to me. The best thing that ever happened to me, because I would have continued down a path of happiness that didn't exist. One of the problems that entrepreneurs and innovators have is they attach their happiness, like I did, to an outcome. I truly believe that money could buy happiness. I believe that when I graduated high school, I'd be happy. When I went to college, I'd be happy. When I became a professional football player, I'd be happy. When I made my first $1 million, I'd be happy. I attached all my happiness to an outcome. And the funniest thing was when that outcome came, where I never had to work a day in my life, was the only day in my life I wasn't happy, which created this terrible spiral, this sabotage, self-serving sabotage. In fact, I walked in one day to my house and I saw my wife crying, and she was talking to her uncle. Now, I've known my wife since I've been 9. She hated me, which is part of the reason I thought money did buy love, is when I was 28, somehow she finally loved me. Weird. But again, I attached it to that outcome. Well, I walked in and my poor wife was crying to her uncle, who also knew me since I was a child, and she said to him, "I'm not sure Dave can pull us out of this, and I'm not happy." And her uncle looked at her, they didn't know I was there, and he said, "You know what? I've known Dave since he's been 10 years old, and everything has gone his way. I can't wait to see what he does with his back against the wall." And then I felt it. I truly felt purpose. I felt it again. I get choked up still, because I felt what I felt like sitting in that car, listening to Warren Moon playing football. I wanted it so bad, right? And I realized that my happiness had a simple definition at that time in my life. It was the enjoyment of the pursuit of my potential. That's what made me happy. I got Andre Reed and Jim Leyritz, 2 of my partners in the room, and obviously Warren. They'll tell you, they have every award there is. Hall of Famers, game-winning home runs in the World Series. They were great moments. But it was the enjoyment of the pursuit of your potential. It was the enjoyment of understanding I have something, a purpose, to make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. So much more than just skills, knowledge, and desire, much more than monetizing content, access, and mediums. There is now a true spiritual or purposeful existence to me to make that money, to not only be an innovator, to be an entrepreneur. And my wife confronted me at that time, and she said, "You better go back and take stock in who you are and what you want to become, because I'm leaving." And so I did, and I came up with these principles. I decided that I'd live my life in a different way, detach myself from the outcome, and live a purposeful existence to provide value to others. So I wake up every morning at service of others. I trust the universe, unentrepreneurial-like, but it's worked for me. Instead of trying to take and create at all times, I actually just provide value. Because what happened in my previous life was I was a great seller, right? I could back-end sell you, lie to you, oversell you, and I could do all of that, but when I did it, I left a void for me to fulfill. And I was inefficient, ineffectively, and statistically unsuccessful because I'm human. And what I learned was that if I lived to the pursuit of my potential, to the pursuit of the truth, if I told the truth and just provided value, that I left a void for the universe to fill, not for me. And everything came to me more rapidly and accurately. That's where sayings like, the more we give, the more we get. Or some people even say, when I give, I get 10 times more back. Well, that's mathematically impossible. It just feels like 10 times, because the universe is efficient, effective, and statistically successful. If you're at service, if you provide value every day, it will come back to you rapidly and accurately. And that's why mentorship was so very important to me. Because I learned one thing, that instead of having to pay the dummy tax myself, I could just ask other idiots how they did it, and they could tell me the mistakes that they made. So the first mentor that I had in my life was I wanted to write a book about making back all my money and helping so many people and having so much fun and manifesting what I wanted. So I went to the Napoleon Hill Foundation. Anyone know Think and Grow Rich? Think and Grow Rich was always one of my favorite books. It was a book that I literally read and felt like I'd made another $1 million every time I read this book. It was a pragmatic and spiritual book about how to live your life in a purposeful, enjoyable way. So I went to the Napoleon Hill Foundation and I said, I want to write a book like Think and Grow Rich. I want an evergreen book, which means it'll last for a long time so future generations can see and learn from the dummy tax that I paid. Maybe something that would inspire me or them like I was inspired by your book, Think and Grow Rich. Within 15 minutes of asking them for help, they gave me enough advice to write a bestseller, how to market it, distribute it, and have continually supported it. In fact, my mom did give me some good advice when I was young. She told me to read a book called Ben Franklin's Autobiography. Anybody in here read it? Oh, look, that's even more people that knew Maurice McDonald. I don't suggest you read it. It's really boring. So let me tell you. But what I learned from it, Ben Franklin said the best thing you can do is ask for help. When you ask for help, you become an investment of others. And not only will they help you if they're capable, but they'll actually continually help you because you're now an investment of theirs. So I became an investment of Napoleon Hill, and carrying through with what Ben Franklin taught, I've actually produced and am now in the movie Think and Grow Rich, just to show you what you can manifest. The second mentor is a guy that's right over there, is Andre Reed. Andre Reed's a Hall of Fame wide receiver, for those of you who are not football fans. Went to the Super Bowl 4 times. 4 different times they went. Unfortunately, or you can even say fortunately, they lost 4 in a row. In fact, Ralph Wilson's the owner, or was the owner of Buffalo, and we built a research center for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And Ralph Wilson, in his speech, he was in his 90s, he walked up to the podium, he could barely walk, and he said, I've donated this $10 million for this research center, really just to find out one thing. How the hell do you go to 4 Super Bowls and lose them all? Well, they still haven't figured that out. But one thing I figured out about Andre is we had a lot in common. Andre played football at a really big school, world-renowned. Everybody thought Andre would be a Hall of Famer, just like Warren. He went to Kutztown, Pennsylvania. Big school. They played against Occidental, I think. But Andre went to school to be a sheriff or a police officer. And he had this value in his life, detaching himself from an outcome, that he was just going to do the best at whatever he put his mind to. Whether it was school, he wanted to stay home, close to his parents, because he had good parents. And constantly, as a mentor, Andre will tell me, Dave, surround yourself by the right people and the right ideas. Right? Surround yourself with the people that are going to elevate you, that are going to create an awareness about you so that you can see things better. Learn from them. And he was able to do that not only in his personal life, but his professional life, and overcoming unbelievable odds from Kutztown. I'm sure you guys know all the other Hall of Famers that went to Kutztown, if there is any. But more importantly, Andre taught me about giving back. As a mentor of mine, I was amazed that he had all these different offers to do things, appearances, speaking engagements, and yet he chose to give back to the Boys and Girls Club. All of his choices are decided of being of service and being of value. And the funny thing is, and we both share this, is there's no shortage of money and there's no shortage of fun, even though both of us live our lives to be at service. So I thank my mentor, Andre Reed, and appreciate you coming as well, just to show you how nice he is. So thank you. And then my next mentor over there, Mr. Clean, Jim Leyritz, wave your hand. So Jim Leyritz has always been one of my heroes. He played for the San Diego Padres and almost took us to win a World Series, but they lost. In fact, he won 2 World Series for the Yankees with an unbelievable game-winning home run that everyone has now named him the King of New York, which I like walking around with Jim because you can go to every city in the country and nobody knows who he is, except for when you're in New York, he might as well be God. Like anywhere we go, we don't pay for anything. It's like if there's a problem, oh, do you know, you like the Yankees? This is Jim Leyritz. Oh, come in. This is great. Well, Jim taught me a great lesson, and it's called illumination. Just like everyone else in the world, including me, not everything in Jim's life went the way that he thought it was going to go. In fact, he had an unfortunate incident that was, life-changing, devastating, and embarrassing. He was wrongfully accused of driving reckless, and somebody was killed in the accident. And literally, there was an overzealous district attorney who tried to ruin his life. And knowing Jim and watching him go through that, the one thing he taught me, he didn't hide from it, he illuminated it, right? And that was a very valuable lesson for me, because 10 years ago, if somebody would have told you that I would be standing on stage to tell everyone how I went bankrupt, right? And that I'm really spiritual and I believe that I can think my way through things and manifest things, I would have told you I'd rather stand on stage naked. Which, believe me, was a lot more painful than those two things. So I'm not going to do it, by the way, even though I'm illuminating. I haven't reached that level of enlightenment yet. But Jim, he just doesn't hide from things, and he just attacked it. And when they vindicated him, he didn't even ask for forgiveness from anyone. It was just amazing to me that he had been persecuted and accused and all of these different things. And of course, we know the media is really great when things, take Tiger, for example, because we don't know what's going to happen. I haven't gone a day since Monday without seeing Tiger's face, and what a great look that is for him, right? It's like the poor guy, it's happened 50 times to him. Now, I don't know if he's innocent or guilty, and it's, going to come out, because the truth always comes out. But imagine going through that for years, and then finally, oh, sorry, we made a mistake. Oh, sorry, for the last 5 years you've been in the newspaper. Oh, sorry, we bankrupt you because you had to spend millions of dollars in legal fees to defend yourself against an unjust thing. So what I learned from that mentor of mine was that we need to illuminate and trust that the truth vibrates the fastest. And that vibration became very important in my life, because I believe everything vibrates. That's why my moniker is that enjoy the pursuit of your potential. The potential is the truth, and the truth vibrates the fastest. In fact, everything in the universe vibrates. Those chairs, the table, they vibrate. Minerals, then plants, then animals, then sound, then light, and then thought. But the thought that vibrates the fastest that I learned was the truth. And the interesting thing about vibration to me that I learned is I was going to India, and I met this doctor, this little doctor, and I'm flying to India, and she turns to me and she says, "Are you okay?" And at that time, I was an arrogant asshole, excuse my language. And I looked at her, I'm like, yeah, am I okay? I'm rich, of course I'm okay. Literally, that's probably the way I thought in my mind. She said, "No, you're so full of light, but you're blocking it." I was like, this lady's crazy. I'm full of light? Okay, thanks. Okay, she goes, "Do you meditate?" I looked at her, I said, "Meditate? No, that's my wife. She's spiritual. She thinks she can sit at home and dream about the Ferrari. I go out, I work really hard, I buy what I want. I'm not sitting around meditating." She said, "Oh," that's too bad, because I could teach you to vibrate faster. I said, what do you mean you could teach me to vibrate faster? She said, "It's very simple. The categories of vibration. You can only be aware of," she says, "that which vibrates equal to or less than you. So what if I could teach you to vibrate faster and be aware of more things?" So awareness became a really big part of my life, because I started learning there was 3 levels of awareness. 1, a conscious level. My cells vibrated, right? And they have a memory. My cells have a memory and they vibrate. And so at a physical level, if I vibrated faster, then I could be aware of whether somebody was back-end selling me or overselling me or even telling me the truth, or just be aware of whether this was a good deal or not, or aware of whether I should pursue that or not, or aware whether I should hang out with him or her. That physical conscious awareness was really important. And then there was another level, the subconscious level, the belief level. I became aware of what my core beliefs were. And I created foundational values based off of my personal values, experiential, giving, and receiving values. And I learned to vibrate faster so I could be aware of more things that were closer to the truth. And then finally, the most valuable lesson I learned was that I had a core energy. And this is the most interesting one as I finish up, is that I have a core energy that attracts things to me. And it causes either really good things to happen or really bad things to happen. So for example, you may know or have a friend that dates a certain type of person. And every 3 to 6 months, they end up breaking up or they've been divorced 3 times, and they'll tell you, oh my gosh, I'm never going to date someone like that again. I'm never going to marry someone like that again. And sure enough, the next person they date is the exact same person, just different face. Same exact problems. In business, we've all met the people. Are you tired of hearing the same story of what happened? Oh, never could get it through. Oh, bad partner. It's again and again and again. That's because you're carrying an energy that's attracting that to you. And then you have the opposite, which is really frustrating because we all have these friends. I have a friend that I, in my mind, would define as a moron. And he is extremely wealthy. He has a gorgeous family, extremely happy. He literally, I know, could sit at a stop sign and somebody would flip him a penny and it would be an Indian penny worth 10 million. I think he failed out of high school. I'm not sure, right? He smoked pot for half of his life, but yet he's able to attract everything that he wants. Even though consciously and subconsciously he doesn't vibrate at the same level as some of us or all of us or most of us, at a core level, he vibrates at a different speed and he attracts what he wants. So I started becoming conscious about the energy that I give. And that's where giving back became so important. I started realizing that if I did certain things every day, that my physical being would have a memory and it changed. So I use golf as an analogy. If I play golf 30 minutes a day, it's far better for me than if I played golf 5 hours every Saturday. In fact, exponentially. Because my physical cells have a memory and the sensory cortex of my physical being would make me a better golfer by practicing every day. And then I started realizing that mentally it made me a better golfer because I have neural pathways that are formed that create efficiencies, effectiveness, and statistical success. I don't have to think as much. So I need to practice that every day. And then finally, at the unconscious level, I have a core energy that shifts by the things I do and the things I think. And if I did it every day, I could have an exponential effect. So I started prioritizing certain things that I wanted to do in my life, and I do them every day. And I don't do the whole day, right? I pick 1 or 2 things. For example, for my health, last time I gave this speech, I think I was 40 pounds heavier. And I decided that health was a priority and that I was going to focus in on my health 1 hour a day, every single day. Over work, over family, no excuses, that's my priority. And it worked. I would like to, give a shout out to my gym and my trainers and all of that. It wouldn't matter where I went. If I stayed focused in on that, I do the same thing with my business, which is extremely successful. I even do it with my mom. Because with my mom, I decided that I wanted her to know 2 things. Number 1, I love her, and 2, I appreciate her. Even though we don't have a lot in common, still doesn't like sports, doesn't understand them, don't have a lot to talk about, but I want her to know that I love and appreciate her. So I decided that I would give her a minimum of 1 minute a day, every single day, to call, text, or email her to make sure she knew that I love and appreciate her. Exponentially, my relationship is far greater than it's ever been for a minimum of 1 minute a day. So if you stay focused in on what you want, if you develop the skills, knowledge, and desires as an innovator, you learn how to monetize those with content, access, and mediums, you can actually take every possibility that you have and become inspired and make it a probability. And then with the right strategy, with the right discipline, and especially the right awareness, you can make every probability your perspective or reality. Thank you very much.